On our wedding anniversary, my wife, Victoria, gave me another one of her signature gifts, a big glass ring. She sent a follow-up text. "Once I make enough money, I'll replace this big piece of glass with a real diamond." However, a moment later, I saw a post on social media from her childhood friend Julian Vance showing off a Rolex. The caption read, "New Year's gift from my baby. I love it." Before I could even confirm if the hand holding his in the picture belonged to my wife, a message from Julian popped up. "Sincere Carter, did you see my post? Just let her go. She and I are the real deal." I froze for a second, then, to my surprise, felt a wave of relief wash over me. I casually sent him a bill in response. "Congratulations, in that case you can start by paying off her quick cash loan for this month." But before the message could send, he blocked me. A minute later, Julian sent a photo of my wife in black stockings. I didn't bother to open the full image and shot back another message. "If she loves you so much, why didn't she marry you?" This time, the message went through. Julian didn't answer my question. Instead, I got a call from my wife, Victoria Morgan. "Darling, you're not misunderstanding something, are you? You know you're the only one for me. Julian is just a friend I've known since we were kids. Don't be jealous of him, you'll make him overthink things. I have to work late, but you should clear the air with Julian when you get a chance." Victoria's gentle tone was tinged with an urgency, as if she were genuinely afraid I'd gotten the wrong idea. I let out a soft chuckle and hung up. Immediately after, Julian sent me a series of receipts for his purchases. They ranged from small items, like a 500 gold ring, to a Rolex worth over 30,000. Sincere, Victoria bought all of this for me. A woman only spends money on the man she truly loves. She's never spent a dime on you, has she? I really don't get why you won't divorce her. Do you enjoy being the third party in someone else's relationship? I shot back. "Julian, you're the homewrecker. You have the audacity to call me the third party? In love, the one who isn't loved is the real third party still clinging to fantasies. Let me send you something that'll wake you up." I stared at the screen, at the video of Victoria with a lustful, hazy look in her eyes, her intermittent moans filling the audio. A heart that had grown indifferent was suddenly pierced with a sharp, stabbing pain. When I first met Victoria, she was a fiercely ambitious woman. She wanted to prove herself, to become a powerhouse. For her, I, a top university graduate, was content to be the man behind the woman, not caring when people called me a kept man or a freeloader. Over the last 2 years, the company has finally started to find its footing. I'd planned to put the toy ring she gave me on my finger in front of everyone at the annual gala, to show them all that our love was all that mattered. But I never imagined that for those same 2 years she had been using high-interest loans to buy luxury goods for Julian. If Julian hadn't sent that video, I would have never known just how far she'd gone. Even the deepest love can't withstand 2 years of betrayal. And Victoria, still thinking I was in the dark, continued to play the role of the devoted wife. To hell with this. Let someone else be the fool. Taking a deep breath, I picked up my phone. It was time to make some decisions. Just as I was about to dial, another message from Julian arrived. He was surprisingly eager to secure his position. He actually messaged me directly, inviting me to his and Victoria's wedding reception in 3 days. The absurdity was staggering. I clutched my phone, but my breathing eased. I was curious to see just how Julian planned to self-destruct. Sure enough, Victoria, who hadn't been home in 3 days, called. "Darling, it's raining today. I'll come home and pick you up for the company's annual gala." It finally clicked. The day Julian mentioned was today. I wondered, how did my company's annual gala turn into his wedding reception? "Okay, just drive straight into the underground parking garage," I replied and hung up, heading downstairs. When I got to the garage, I found Julian sitting in the passenger seat of my wife's car. He didn't even bother to look back at me. Victoria, however, smiled. "Darling, Julian said he wanted to see what our events are like, so I brought him along." Seeing that I was still staring at the front seat, Victoria's brow furrowed slightly. Honey, you know this. Julian's been frail since he was a child and gets carsick. He can only sit in the front. I glanced at her, and her expression softened instantly, as if she thought her affair was a perfect, seamless secret, utterly laughable. Vicky, Julian suddenly said, turning to look at me with a triumphant smirk. Big C's constitution is probably even weaker than mine, right? I mean, you two have been married for years and still don't have kids. Julian, don't talk nonsense. Your Big C takes herbal supplements every day to get his body in shape. We'll have a child sooner or later. But I interjected, Julian, how do you know our not having kids is my problem? I looked at Victoria pointedly. Before she could react, Julian spoke up. Without a second thought, he said, of course it's because of you. There's obviously nothing wrong with Vicky. After saying this, he gave Victoria a blatant, suggestive wink. I smiled at him. You sound so sure. It's almost as if you've gotten Vicky pregnant yourself. Darling, what are you trying to say? Victoria immediately cut in. Julian and I are just friends. Don't say such things. How can you joke like that? Julian doesn't even have a girlfriend besides. Aren't you just putting horns on your own head by saying that? Her face flushed, whether from my words or Julian's teasing, I couldn't tell. She let out a long sigh after her tirade. Darling, I know you love me, but you can't let your love for me turn everyone else into a perceived rival. I felt a wave of nausea and avoided her gaze, saying nothing. Julian, however, chimed in with a grin. Well, that's because Vicky is just so amazing. Not only is she gentle and considerate, but she's also incredibly capable, easily making 7 figures a year. She's a self-made woman, started from scratch, a true powerhouse in the business world. Julian's eyes shone as he looked at Victoria, but I found his words strange. Was he even talking about Victoria Morgan? Gentle and considerate? A 7-figure salary, started from scratch? Big C, why are you just standing there? Get in the car. If we're any later, the dinner will start without us. He gave me a meaningful look. If we're late, you'll miss the toast from me and Vicky. Victoria interrupted him. What Julian means is, everyone at the company will want to raise a glass to you today, so it wouldn't be right to be late. Seeing the look of pure admiration in Julian's eyes as he gazed at Victoria, I couldn't help but feel disgusted. Right in front of them, I called my driver. Come to the parking garage and take me to the office. Victoria looked surprised, but Julian was ecstatic. Darling, I'm right here. Why are you calling the driver? Vicky, Big C is a man of status. Of course it looks better for him to arrive with a chauffeur. Let's go. Victoria wanted to ask more, but Julian was already rushing her. All she could say was, well, see you at the gala then. She hit the gas and they were gone. They did arrive before me, but without me there, the festivities couldn't begin. When I walked in, I noticed the atmosphere was incredibly strange. Although Victoria wasn't the ultimate owner of the company, she had always been its public-facing manager, and everyone was usually very respectful towards her. But tonight, they were avoiding her like the plague. In contrast, Julian stood boldly by her side, actively networking with the people around them as if he were the host. From the moment I entered the venue, every employee looked at me with pity in their eyes. Perhaps only Victoria could believe her affair was a secret when it was this blatant. I walked to the center of the room and raised my glass, about to announce the start of the dinner, but Julian cut me off. He raised his own glass and gave me a slight nod. Big C, thank you for taking care of Vicky all these years. As he finished, Victoria's face instantly darkened. She hissed in a low voice, Julian, what are you talking about? In what capacity are you thanking me? I asked with a smile, not giving Julian a moment to react. Julian glanced at Victoria, failing to notice her panicked expression. You know. Victoria's mouth opened, but she stood frozen to the spot. I can't watch this anymore. How can a freeloader like you act like the big boss in front of the real deal? Have you no shame? A female voice rang out. It was my assistant, Chloe. What nonsense are you spouting? Victoria immediately spun around and began berating Chloe. You're my husband's assistant, aren't you? Is this how you do your job? Spreading baseless rumors the moment you open your mouth? My husband has always known that Julian and I are close. If you don't know how to speak, then shut up. You're trying to disrupt our family harmony with your lies. Did a donkey kick you in the head? How can you be so malicious? Besides, how we interact is our private business. What right does a dog like you have to comment? Victoria turned to me, fuming. Darling, this employee is slandering Julian's character out of nowhere. We absolutely cannot keep someone like this in the company. She should be fired. Chloe looked at me, her expression a mix of hurt and indignation. Mr. Carter, I'm sorry. I know this isn't my place to interfere, but what? Victoria snapped, cutting her off before turning back to me. I remained silent. Victoria started to panic. Darling, what is the meaning of this? You believe her? You believe her baseless accusations? Are you really going to keep an employee who slanders people so casually? I ignored Victoria and looked calmly at Julian. Didn't you say you were inviting me to your and Victoria's wedding reception? That shouldn't count as a rumor, should it? Julian looked completely innocent. I never said that, Big C. Why would you make a joke like that in front of everyone? Fine, just fine, Victoria pointed at me. Sincere Carter, to protect some rumor-mongering dog, you're willing to pin this on me and Julian Sincere Carter. Am I that worthless in your eyes? You and your company's dog can just walk all over me, spreading lies in front of all these people. Is this the kind of character your family has? Julian stepped forward, inserting himself between Victoria and me. Big C, it's one thing if you don't like me, but Vicky has been so good to you. How can you have the heart to slander her too? I couldn't stand the sight of his face so close to mine. I grabbed him by the neck and shoved. Get the hell out of my way. Suddenly a glass came flying through the air. I instinctively raised my hand to block it, and it shattered against the back of my hand with a sharp crash. Shards of broken glass embedded themselves deep into my flesh, and blood began to flow. It was Victoria. She didn't even look at my hand. Instead, she rushed to Julian's side, steadying him anxiously before turning on me. Sincere Carter, your parents looked down on me. You looked down on me. And now even your employees dare to look down on me. Julian is the only one who speaks up for me, and you resort to violence before I could say a word. Julian, his face a mask of righteous fury, spoke first. Sincere Carter, are you even a man? You're a grown man, letting Vicky work herself to the bone to support you, to feed you, to clothe you, to give you a big house and a luxury car. Sincere Carter, are you a man? As a fellow man, I'm ashamed of you. I was stunned. Victoria works to support me? It seemed Julian's information was seriously flawed, and here he was wearing the Rolex Victoria bought him, jumping up and down accusing me of being a freeloader. Looking at the agitated Julian, my cold smile was tinged with pity. You're ashamed of me? One by one I pulled the glass shards from the back of my hand. Amid gasps from the crowd, I swung a vicious punch that connected squarely with his face. Then don't fucking look. Julian crumpled like a hen with a broken wing. He spun halfway around, his body reflexively trying to stay upright, before collapsing in a heap. Looking at the astonished employees, I offered an apologetic smile. That punch had nothing to do with any personal grudge. I had simply warned him to get out of my way. He didn't listen. Ah, a sharp cry broke the silence. Victoria had finally snapped out of her shock. She scrambled over to Julian, cradling his head in her arms with anguish. Julian, are you okay? Vicky, I feel so dizzy. I need to go to the hospital. Julian clutched his head, which wasn't even red or swollen, his eyes a little dazed. Frantic, Victoria helped him up and shot me a venomous glare. Sincere Carter, how dare you hit him? He says a few words in my defense, and you try to kill him, Sincere Carter, if anything happens to Julian. I will never forgive you, and the law won't let you get away with it with that. She hastily dragged Julian towards the hospital. Facing the shocked employees, I smiled calmly. Please, everyone, continue eating. Don't let this ruin the company's annual gala. My assistant, Chloe, looked at me with stars in her eyes, mixed with a hint of concern. Mr. Carter, what about Manager Morgan? Don't worry, I'll handle it. Leaving Chloe with a reassuring smile, I made my way unhurriedly to the hospital. As soon as I walked in, I saw Julian in the emergency room. To my surprise, it was Julian, his face still swollen, who was standing to the side holding a report, while Victoria looked as if she had just finished being examined by a doctor. I stood at the doorway and overheard Victoria telling Julian, "Sincere Carter will never divorce me. You know how much he loves me, he'd die for me. No matter what I do, he'll just pretend he doesn't see. I can't get him to agree to a divorce." Julian's face was grim, but his voice was filled with a secret delight. "But now you're pregnant. He can't possibly not question whose child it is. What do we do then? Let's just lay our cards on the table. Tell him you're pregnant, the child is mine. I don't believe he can tolerate even this." He was right, I couldn't tolerate it. I knocked on the door. The moment Victoria saw me, her face went deathly pale. "Darling," she began, her voice trembling. I gave her a calm smile. "You want a divorce?" "No, darling, Victoria tried to explain, but I simply held out a hand, slapping a set of divorce papers down in front of her. "It's fine. I agree." Victoria was stunned. She stared in disbelief at the divorce papers, then back at me. How could you bear to divorce me?" I didn't answer, instead asking, "Are you saying you don't want to?" Victoria hesitated. Beside her, Julian snatched a pen from the windowsill and thrust it into her hand. "Vicky, sign it. Do you want to be with me or not?" Under his threatening gaze, Victoria finally gritted her teeth and quickly signed her name. "Thank you for your cooperation." I signed my own name as well, on all 3 copies. When I handed Victoria her copy, she stared at me intently. "Sincere Carter, you'd better not regret this." I didn't answer, just smiled and turned to leave. I don't know if I'll have regrets, but I know for certain that she will. Victoria had forgotten many things, just as she had forgotten her vow of one life, one love, one partner. When we got married, I told her, "You can stop loving me, you can leave, but never, ever betray me." The next time I saw Victoria and Julian was a month later, after the mandatory cooling-off period for the divorce. With the freshly issued divorce certificate in my hand, I waited for them outside City Hall. Victoria and Julian emerged, hand in hand. Victoria, wearing a striking red silk dress, lowered her head when she saw me, but Julian was beaming with joy. He adjusted his bow tie and spoke with feigned surprise. "Big C, are you waiting for Vicky?" "Ah, well, you were husband and wife. It's understandable to be a little reluctant to let go." He smugly waved the marriage certificate he had just obtained. "Speaking of which, you're a real class act, Big C. A wife this good, and you just let me have her." Congratulations," I nodded perfunctorily. "I just wanted to ask you, has her information been updated?" "Information?" Julian looked confused. "Yes, all the legal information, marital status, emergency contact, things like that." "Of course. Why do you ask?" Julian's eyes were blank. I smiled warmly. "As long as it's updated. I'd rather not receive any more mysterious bills." "Bills? What bills?" Julian's face was a question mark. "For example, from Quick Cash. Here's one. Remember to pay it by the 8th. Last month's payment is already overdue." I sent him a screenshot. "What Quick Cash?" Julian looked down at his phone, froze for a second, then suddenly burst out laughing. "Big C, who are you trying to fool? Vicky makes 7 figures a year. How could she owe money to Quick Cash? Ha! I see what this is. You got divorced, you're bitter, and now you're trying to stir up trouble between us." Beside him, Victoria flinched at the mention of the loan. She glanced at Julian but said nothing. I smiled. "You're overthinking it. I sincerely hope your love is stronger than steel." "Well said, Big C," Julian said smugly. "My love for Vicky isn't about material things. Your petty tricks can't shake our bond." I smiled, gratified, and proceeded to send him all of Victoria's accounts for various buy now, pay later services, style pay, foodie credit, shop now. Julian was getting annoyed. He glanced at them. "Sincere, you really have too much time on your hands. The woman doesn't love you anymore. Just let it go." What's the point of photoshopping all these fake bills? He casually looked up, saw the red dress on Victoria, then looked back at his phone. You even managed to match the dress Vicky is wearing. You must have put a lot of work into this, huh? What dress? Victoria finally spoke, leaning closer to Julian to see his phone. Julian scoffed. He's saying this custom-made dress of yours was actually bought online. Victoria froze, then stammered, "Oh, yes, it was." The smile on Julian's face froze. His mouth hung open. "So besides this dress, what else did you buy?" "Julian, what did he send you?" "You know what he's like, a pathological liar. Always spreading rumors, don't let him trick you with that." Victoria snatched the phone from Julian's hand. When she saw the records of various debts, her lips trembled. "These are all fake," she said, glancing nervously at Julian. "Julian, do I look like someone who's short on cash?" Julian's expression shifted. He suddenly burst into laughter. "Sincere Carter, oh sincere Carter, you're really pulling out all the stops just to get under our skin." His phone suddenly rang. He answered it while looking lovingly at Victoria. "Let's be clear, Vicky doesn't need to borrow money from Quick Cash. And even if she did, I'd sell everything I own to pay it back for her." What's wrong, honey?" Victoria asked nervously. "You've been borrowing money all over town?" Julian's face turned an even deeper shade of red than when I had punched him. I stood to the side, thoroughly pleased. In the past, Victoria always used my phone number for her loans. Every time a payment was due, my phone would be flooded with collection calls. It was endlessly annoying. Now finally, someone else was answering those calls. Victoria's face was ashen. "Honey, what on earth is wrong?" "Some debt collectors just called me. They said if you don't pay up today, they're going to come find me and cut off my hands," Julian said, his voice dazed. Yes, I understood completely. I'd had dealings with the people who called for Victoria once before. They were professional loan sharks, and they talked tough. It was no wonder Julian was terrified. After just one phone call, Victoria was also stunned. Her shock finally snapped Julian back to his senses. He slapped her hard across the face. "You really have been borrowing money? You owe money to 7 or 8 different places. The monthly payments are over $10,000. Are you trying to get me killed?" Julian was roaring. Victoria, pale as a ghost, suddenly clutched her stomach and let out a little ouch. Ouch. Julian's eyes cleared slightly, but his tone remained furious. "Say something, damn it, they're coming to cut off my hands. What are we going to do?" "Fuck, honey, don't get so worked up." Victoria cradled her stomach. "Don't fall for his trap. He's just jealous of our happiness and wants to cause trouble for us. That's why he dug up all this stuff. First Quick Cash, then all these bills, and now collection calls. He's divorced from me, what does he care?" Julian gritted his teeth and shot me a suspicious look. "But these debts—" "Don't worry about the debts, we still have our marital assets." Victoria cut him off. Julian's eyes instantly lit up. "That's right, you're officially divorced today, which means it's time to divide the assets, right?" He was beaming again. "Just the house and the 2 cars are worth at least $200,000. A few measly debts are nothing. Big C is so generous after all." He sneered again. I smiled too. "You're underestimating. The house alone is worth nearly $300,000 on the market. With the 2 cars, it's at least $350,000. But none of it has anything to do with either of you." "What, you think you're above the law, Big C?" Julian scoffed. I continued to smile gently. "This is a society of laws. No one is above the law, and I am certainly acting in accordance with it." Ignoring Victoria's suddenly changed expression, I continued, "Victoria and I signed a prenuptial agreement. Whoever cheats leaves with nothing. What proof do you have that I cheated?" Victoria began quickly, but then she stopped, subconsciously glancing down at her own slightly swelling belly. She bit her lip hard, her face turning a ghastly shade of pale, her eyes filled with venom. She continued in a low, chilling voice, "Sincere Carter, I can get rid of this child. As soon as I do, you won't have any evidence. And Julian and I can always have more children. Right, Julian?" she said, turning to him. only to be met by his ashen face. "Julian, what's wrong?" "It's okay, Julian. I can give you more children in the future. Lots and lots of them," Victoria cooed, trying to comfort him. "He has proof," Julian said, his face as white as a sheet. "What proof?" Victoria froze. "I sent him the video of us in bed." Victoria was dumbfounded. She stood there, stunned, for a full minute before her face twisted into a mask of rage and she let out a piercing shriek. "Julian Vance, are you a stupid pig? Why would you send him that kind of thing?" Victoria was so furious snot was bubbling from her nose. "I told you not to film it back then, but you said you wanted to commemorate our love. I swear, I really—" "Commemorate my ass, you idiot, you're the other man. How dare you send proof of the affair to her husband? How the hell was I supposed to know you two signed some bullshit prenup?" Julian yelled back, his face a mask of regret. He suddenly turned to me, his eyes bloodshot, his fists clenched. "This is all your fault. You designed this whole thing. You orchestrated everything." He threw the marriage certificate to the ground and stalked towards me, snarling. But an arm suddenly shot out, blocking his path. The owner of the arm was a stranger. He held up the marriage certificate Julian had just thrown and brought it close to Julian's face. "Are you Victoria Morgan's husband?" "Fuck you. Get lost." Julian didn't even bother to look, swatting the arm away viciously. His answer was a hard punch to the face. "Son of a bitch owes money and still acts this tough, boys. Get him." Several burly men instantly surrounded Julian. Dust flew, mingled with Julian's pained screams. After a flurry of kicks, Julian became completely submissive. He covered his head, blood streaming from his nose. "Boss, it's a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding." The leader, Spike, grabbed Julian by the hair. "Misunderstanding my ass? When are you going to pay me back the money you owe?" "I don't owe you money, boss. You've got the wrong person," Julian explained frantically. "Wrong person? It's written right here. Aren't you Victoria Morgan's husband?" The marriage certificate was once again shoved in Julian's face. "No." Julian shook his head repeatedly. Smack! The leader slapped him again. "The proof is right here and you still deny it? You think I'm blind?" "Stop hitting him," a shriek rang out. Victoria, who had been frozen with fear, finally snapped out of it. She rushed forward and grabbed the leader's arm. "He's not my husband, then who is?" Victoria pointed a finger viciously at me. "Him, he has money, and he's been the one paying my debts all along," she added. Several pairs of eyes focused on my face. The leader spoke tentatively. "Buddy, who are you to her?" "Her ex-husband." "Just divorced," I answered with a smile. "Smart move. This woman is a spendthrift, and on top of that, you paid so much for her, and she doesn't even appreciate it." "Get lost, you spendthrift bitch. Don't make me beat you up too." The man, Spike, snarled, scaring Victoria away. He turned and kicked Julian again. "Tell me, when are you paying?" "Go after the person who owes you the money." Julian was already crying. "I've been collecting debts for a long time, and I've never met such a shameless man." Another slap landed on Julian's face. "Are you a man or not?" "Stop, please stop," Julian sobbed, tears and snot streaming down his face. I'll pay when?" The man raised his hand, ready to strike again. "1 week, give me 1 week, I'll get the money," Julian stammered. "Fine. I'll give you 1 more week. If you don't have the money in a week, you'd better watch your back and don't even think about hiding. I'm known for being relentless. Until the debt is paid, I'll find you wherever you go." I never give up. After delivering his threat, the man turned back to me. "Brother, about today's business," I sighed. "Paying your debts is just the way of the world, and if a conflict arises during debt collection, a little scuffle is normal. What does it have to do with me?" The man chuckled. "That's right, just a scuffle. After it's done, we all go our separate ways. Let's go." He waved his hand, and he and his cronies left as quickly as they came. Victoria scrambled over again, crying, trying to help Julian up, but they both ended up tumbling to the ground. Watching her festive red dress get instantly filthy, I felt a sense of weariness. Once upon a time. Shaking my head slightly, I prepared to leave when a hoarse laugh suddenly came from the ground. "Sincere, Carter, don't think you've won." "Yeah, You have the company, the cars, the house, and that pretty assistant at the office gets stars in her eyes whenever she talks about you. God knows what she sees in a freeloader like you. Julian's face was completely twisted with hate. Paired with his newly swollen face, he looked like something out of a horror movie. He lay on the ground, covered in dust, his voice dripping with venom. But it doesn't matter how many pretty women bat their eyes at you. You can't have children. You will never have children in this lifetime. I stopped walking. Julian grew even more smug. He sat up. What's wrong? Did I hit a nerve? I remained non-committal, asking instead, and why will I never have children in this lifetime? Isn't it obvious? You were married for years, and Vicky never got pregnant. Julian looked at me with glee. I heard from Vicky that you never use protection, and you're always drinking those herbal remedies. Victoria's eyes lit up as well. She cleared her throat and spoke in a soft voice. Sincere, we were married after all. I'm not a completely heartless person. Since you can't have children, you're destined to be childless. You have a company, cars, a house. What's the point if you have no children to inherit it all? How about this? Julian chimed in. Vicky will have the baby, and I'll let the child call you godfather. Or you could just raise the child as your own. Let him call you dad. You can give him the company and everything. That way you'll have someone to take care of you in your old age, right? I truly couldn't believe that even now these two were still after my company. But I was more surprised by Julian's confidence in my infertility. I asked, why are you so sure the problem is with me and not Victoria? Isn't it obvious? Vicky is pregnant with my child, so it must be your problem, Julian burst out laughing. I asked a doctor. He said this situation is most likely due to a low sperm count. A man with a low sperm count. What's the difference between that and a eunuch? Ha ha. I started laughing too, even louder than Julian. Wiping away a tear of laughter, I said, are you Superman, or do your little swimmers know magic? Julian was confused. What do you mean? I mean, Victoria has blocked fallopian tubes. She can't ovulate normally. So how exactly did you get her pregnant? How did you know? Victoria shrieked. I've never had a physical exam before we got married. You said you were afraid I was a playboy and might have some disease, so you insisted on a premarital checkup. I joked that if one of us was getting checked, we both should. Victoria looked terrified. She instinctively turned her head and met Julian's stony pale face. She shuddered. Julian, don't listen to his nonsense. He's just trying to drive a wedge between us. You're carrying some bastard's child and you lied to me telling me you loved me? Julian roared from deep in his throat. Victoria panicked. Julian, I'm not sick. The baby is really yours. She suddenly cried out in pain as Julian punched her hard in the stomach. I knew the dates didn't add up. If I hadn't seen your husband drinking those herbal remedies every day, I would have been suspicious a long time ago. Tell me, you whore. Who else have you been sleeping with? He demanded, his face contorted with rage. Victoria collapsed to the ground, clutching her stomach. She tried to explain weakly, Julian, I didn't cheat on you. I had a risky egg retrieval surgery at the hospital and then artificial insemination. She pleaded, don't be angry. I did it because I love you. I wanted to use this baby to keep you, to make you happy. Love me? Julian kicked her hard in the abdomen. I threw away my pride for you, became a kept man, got beaten up, took on your debts. He ignored the blood spreading beneath her and stomped down hard. It's one thing to have no money, but you get knocked up with some bastard's kid and tell me it's because you love me. Sighing, I pulled out my phone. Officer, there's a man here beating a pregnant woman. It was spring again. I sat on the sofa staring blankly at a woman on the screen. She was crying and laughing at the same time. I was wrong, forgive me. A soft body leaned against me. That woman looked so pitiful. Hey, doesn't she look like Manager Morgan? I wrapped my arm around her, inhaling the sweet scent of her perfume, and reached out to gently touch the cheek of the small bundle in her arms. I don't know. Can't recognize her. What about that Julian guy? In prison. He'll probably have a very hard time having children in this lifetime. Assaulting a pregnant woman and causing a miscarriage is an aggravated felony, with a sentence starting at 10 years. Not to mention, Julian had assaulted his own wife of less than half an hour, rupturing both her ovaries and uterus, causing permanent psychiatric damage, and rendering her unable to ever conceive again. For this, Julian was sentenced to 17 years. If a man who committed such a crime, spent over a decade in prison, and came out with no skills still managed to find a woman willing to have his children, well, he must be the chosen one. My hand, which was stroking the baby, accidentally strayed. A soft, gentle giggle sounded in my ear. "You said you were never sick, so why did you drink those herbal remedies every day back then?" "I really thought you—" I held the soft body in my arms tighter. "That's a very good question. Who knows? My parents had always wanted grandchildren. I always told them that Victoria was focused on her career, and there was no rush to have children. After a while, afraid the pressure would get to Victoria, I changed my story and said I had some minor health issues and needed to take herbal remedies to get my body in shape. For some reason, I suddenly remembered the last question Victoria ever asked me. That day, as she was being loaded into the ambulance, her face pale, she suddenly asked, "So you knew from the beginning that I couldn't have children? Why did you still marry me?" I smiled softly and closed the laptop. Yeah, who knows? My fiancée, a powerhouse career woman, fell in love with a poor assistant who was juggling multiple jobs. She was adamant about breaking up with me, the scion of a wealthy family. I thought it was a fleeting moment of pity, so I gave the assistant a sum of money to disappear for good. A few years later, my ex-fiancée had become the CEO of a major corporation. Her first order of business was to destroy my family. Standing over my metaphorical corpse, she crowed, "If you hadn't interfered, Leo and I would have been married with children long ago. This is the karma you deserve." Only then did I realize that the assistant was the spitting image of her white moonlight, the boy next door who had died in a car crash. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the gala where my fiancée was publicly declaring her love for the assistant, condescendingly pressuring me to call off our engagement. This time, I walked straight up to the capital Zit girl, an arranged marriage between our families, in or out. I owe the success of this new product launch to Leo's support and care. "Leo, I'm in love with you." At the celebratory banquet, my fiancée, Tiffany Young, was slightly tipsy, gazing affectionately at her assistant, who wore a cheap t-shirt and had a beauty mark under his left eye. Her declaration stunned the room. The guests either pretended not to hear or laughed it off, saying she'd had too much to drink. After a moment of awkward commotion, someone pushed Tiffany into my arms. "Tiff, Sincere is right here. You should go sober up." Everyone was smiling, but their eyes were filled with embarrassment. Those who knew her well understood. Tiffany Young, once a relentless go-getter and now a startup founder, had discipline and ambition etched into her bones. She would never allow herself to make such a public mistake. Sure enough, faced with the crowd's reaction, Tiffany just sneered. She recoiled from my touch with disgust, swirling the red wine in her glass, no longer pretending to be drunk. I wasn't joking. "I love Leo. He is my true love, Sincere Harrison. You're just a clueless, rich kid. What would you know about soulmates? You can't stop me this time. I stared at Tiffany. A defiant smirk played on her lips, her eyes challenging me. In that moment, I understood. Tiffany Young had been reborn too. As I hesitated, Leo stumbled down from the stage. "Mr. Harrison, there's nothing going on between Miss Young and me. I'll resign tomorrow." "Please don't fight because of me." Tiffany, not expecting Leo to back down, grabbed his arm in front of everyone and interlocked her fingers with his. "Leo, your mother is in the hospital. If you quit, how will you afford her medical bills? You only dropped out of college to pay for her treatment. Are you going to give up now?" "Leo, I understand you. I'll help you." Tiffany's own mother had died young because they couldn't afford medical care. So Leo's situation struck a chord. That, combined with the unrequited love from her past life, led the reborn Tiffany to use this gala to force my hand and make way for Leo. Seeing Tiffany's aggressive stance, the crowd gasped. Everyone knew I was a complete simp for her. Seeing my silent forbearance, one of my friends tried to mediate. Big H, she's just mad you missed her birthday last time. Why don't you apologize? Another friend even suggested, why not get on your knees and beg? A real man knows when to bend. It's not shameful to give in to your wife. I had been captivated by the fiercely competitive Tiffany when we met. I'd even threatened to cut ties with my own family to make them accept her. Now, with her company just starting to find its footing, she couldn't wait to kick me to the curb. Seeing my silence, Tiffany thought she had me cornered. She lifted her chin, her tone imperious. Sincere Harrison, I'm telling you right now, whether you apologize or get on your knees, I'm still calling off the engagement. If you don't agree, I agree. I cut her off before she could finish. Let's call it off. Right now my voice was firm and decisive. My friends froze. Tiffany herself trembled, staring at me in astonishment. She had planned to use me as a stepping stone to profess her love for Leo, but her prepared lines were now useless. She could only shoot me a resentful glare. Sincere Harrison, you've finally come to your senses. That's good. Even though I don't love you, we can still be friends. Once the company goes public, Leo and I will get married. I hope you can be there. Go public. I scoffed. In my past life, I had poured money and connections into her company, allowing it to survive the brutal market and successfully go public. Now, without me, facing a business world full of sharks, did she really think she could make it with this nobody Leo? I glanced at Leo, who was trembling with suppressed glee. Sensing my gaze, Leo's lips curled into a smirk. He adopted a victor's pose. Big H, I apologize for everything that happened tonight, but true love is priceless. Please understand. I had investigated Leo. His story about dropping out of college for his sick mother was a lie. He was expelled for fighting over a girl. His part-time jobs were actually him trolling gyms, looking for a sugar mama. Meeting his provocative gaze, I waved my hand impatiently. Since you two leeches have found each other, I'm certainly not going to stoop to a beast's level. Leo's face turned pale. Tiffany rushed forward to shield her man. Sincere Harrison, I know you're madly in love with me, but there's no right or wrong in love. Leo is innocent in all this. I'm sorry for the pain of breaking the engagement, but I can't betray my own heart and force myself to marry you. I laughed as if I'd heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. I laughed so hard I nearly split my sides. Tiffany Young, are you done with your performance? If the show's over, could you please move aside? With that, I walked towards the girl in the beret who had been hiding in a corner, peeking at me. Seeing me approach, she tried to slip away, but a stack of Polaroid photos fell to the floor with a clatter. They were all solo shots of me. I smiled and said, Victoria Prescott, will you marry me? The girl who had been trying to flee turned back in shock. Sincere bro, are you insane? She asked, her voice filled with disbelief. I pulled out a ring, an arranged marriage between our families. In or out? The surroundings fell silent. The Prescotts were a political dynasty, old money. The Harrisons were titans of the capital's financial world. An alliance between our two families would reshape the power structure of the elite circle. Seeing I was serious, Victoria's expression turned emotional. You won't regret this? Victoria and I were childhood friends. I'd always thought she just saw me as an older brother. It wasn't until my past life, when she collected my body and relentlessly sought revenge against Tiffany, that I realized she had truly loved me. Thinking of this, I nodded firmly. But Tiffany couldn't stand it. She crossed her arms and stepped forward, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Sincere Harrison, just because I broke up with you, you're going to propose to someone else with the ring you bought for me? Is this your idea of revenge? Leo also stepped up to get some attention. He produced a bracelet from somewhere. Tiffany, may I call you that? This is a family heirloom from the Millers for my future wife. Will you accept it? Tiffany beamed, leaning against Leo like a delicate flower. As long as it's from you, I'll love it. I ignored their little show. Instead, I held the diamond ring out to Victoria, size 12. It has your name engraved on the band, and it's a prong setting, your favorite. Do you like it? When Victoria picked up the 10-carat diamond ring, Its brilliant sparkle not only lit up the hotel but also blinded the onlookers. The crowd of gossips erupted. Holy crap, she threw away a $20 million diamond for a $200 piece of silver junk, and she calls herself a career woman? What a fool, ha. And she had the nerve to say Big H couldn't live without her. That's hilarious, the chatter filled the room. Tiffany's face turned a shade of purple with rage. I didn't even spare her a glance as I left. Tiffany was so furious she stomped her foot. She yelled at my retreating back. Sincere Harrison, do you think putting on this show will make me come back to you? I'm telling you, I will never compromise for money as if to provoke me. Tiffany, who had always valued her privacy, started flaunting her new life on social media the very next day, making sure to tag me in every post. One picture showed her and Leo having a candlelight dinner on a yacht in the Aegean Sea. Another showed her flying to an international forum to give a lecture. Sometimes it was her in France personally cooking a steak for her man. Every photo had a caption, 3 meals a day, 4 seasons a year. Home is wherever you are. I wasn't idle during this period either. In my past life, Tiffany had seized control of the Harrison fortune so quickly because I had shirked my responsibilities. So the first thing I did was go home and tell my parents I had turned over a new leaf and was ready to take over the family business. Therefore, when a week passed and Tiffany hadn't received any desperate pleas from me, and our major clients, hearing we'd split, were all threatening to cancel their contracts with her, she couldn't hold out any longer. A frantic call came through. Sincere Harrison, I was drunk the other day and said the wrong things. I was just trying to test how much you love me. Heh, so much for not compromising. It was always like this. She'd offer a flimsy excuse, and I'd forgive her without a second thought. When I didn't immediately argue back, Tiffany assumed she had placated me. I could hear her sigh in relief over the phone, her voice regaining its confidence. Sincere Harrison, I knew you were devoted to me. There's no way you could fall in love with someone else. I don't know what's gotten into these clients. They're all demanding their deposits back. Quick wire me $100 million, don't worry. Calling off the engagement was just something I said in anger. I'll be at the engagement party on time. The reborn Tiffany was trying to have her cake and eat it too, enjoying her romance with her little assistant while using our so-called love to keep me on the hook, making me willingly fund her ventures. Too bad she had already killed the lovesick fool I used to be. Now, hearing her graciously offer to marry me, I only felt disgusted. Tiffany Young, if you need money, why don't you ask your boyfriend? Oh wait, he probably has to ask you for money just to buy his own underwear, doesn't he? Tiffany was furious. She started screaming at me through the phone. Sincere Harrison, I already told you it was a misunderstanding. Why are you being such a selfish and petty man about this? Do you believe I'll skip the engagement party next month? The engagement party? I laughed in disbelief. A green tea bitch and her dog. A match made in heaven. I wish you and Leo a long and happy life together. Not utterly destroying her was the greatest mercy I could show. And she still thought she could manipulate me with my feelings for her? Pathetic. But Tiffany wouldn't give up. After I hung up, she sent dozens of text messages with excuses. I blocked her number. Somehow she got a hold of a friend's phone and called me again. I immediately hung up. A minute later, an unknown number called. I frowned, answered, and put it on speaker. Mr. Harrison, I'm guessing you wouldn't want the scandal of your girlfriend's suicide to break just as you're taking over your company, would you? It was Leo. My heart skipped a beat. This quiet dog was finally starting to bite. When I didn't respond, that punk thought he had me. His voice was smug, and he lectured me with a condescending tone. Mr. Harrison, Tiffany is so distraught over you that she's threatening suicide. You two were in love. Surely you don't want her to end her life at such a young age? $100 million for a wife. That's a deal that's a sure win for you and for the Harrison Corporation. You should consider it. I couldn't believe that for Leo's sake, Tiffany would willingly let herself be used like this. How about this? Leo paused. I'll send you the account number in a bit. As long as you wire the $100 million, I'll help you talk Tiffany down. Fearing I wouldn't commit, he added a threat. Don't worry, as soon as the money arrives, I guarantee I won't let Tiffany slit her wrists or jump off a building or anything. I had planned to stay out of Leo's business, but this punk had the audacity to threaten me. I was genuinely amused. Life gets dull, and then you have clowns trying to tell you what to do. I gave my assistant a look, and he understood. I toyed with Leo for a few more minutes like playing with a monkey, until we had traced his location and recorded the call. Then I drawled lazily, "Police, there's a man here attempting to commit fraud. Beep, beep, beep." Hearing my words, the punk panicked and immediately hung up. 2 hours later, my office door was kicked open. Tiffany stormed in, screaming at me. "Sincere Harrison, why did you call the police? Don't you know Leo was arrested? You've ruined him." I glanced up at her. "What do you mean, I ruined him? Wasn't it you who gave him my number? How else would he have bothered me?" Tiffany was speechless. In our past life, I had given Leo $1 million, so she was certain that for her sake I'd be willing to part with even $100 million this time. In the past, I truly couldn't bear to see a single hair on Tiffany's head harmed. But now, a woman who had already betrayed me, was she worthy of being cherished in my hands? Seeing my calm demeanor, Tiffany glared at me fiercely. "Sincere Harrison, I am so sick of a selfish and petty man like you. I will get Leo out, and I will marry him. Your engagement party is at the Crown, right? You don't want me as your bride?" Just you wait. After saying her piece, she shot me one last venomous look and stalked out, head held high in her heels. A week later, I understood what she meant by "just you wait." Despite her severe cash flow shortage, she used her memories from the past life to bet her entire fortune on a stock that was about to have a 7-day winning streak. Overnight, she staged a stunning comeback. Her nearly bankrupt startup transformed into the hottest new name in the elite circle. She was even hailed as the stock whisperer. Riding the wave of hype, she booked the top-floor garden at the Crown Hotel and invited all the who's who of the elite circle. To humiliate me, she deliberately scheduled her engagement party on the same day as mine. Knowing I had arranged for a fleet of 18 luxury cars, she waved her hand and had her new admirers assemble a convoy of 18 sports cars. Knowing I had commissioned a custom wedding gown from a famous international designer, she found a mining magnate to source a one-of-a-kind pink diamond for herself. She thought she was earning face for Leo. What she didn't realize was that the more she did, the more people outside called Leo a kept man, a gigolo who was being sponsored. A friend warned her, asking if her constant competition with me was a sign of unacknowledged love. Tiffany just sneered. "He's just a rich kid who gave me a little support when I was down. If it wasn't for the money, I would never have dated him. Now, I'm going to show him just how happy I am without him." My fiancée, Victoria, showed me the video, just as I finished an international conference call. I expected my frank and outspoken girl to mock Tiffany relentlessly. Instead, her eyes welled up with tears, and she wrapped her arms tightly around my neck. "Sincere, bro, I know you wouldn't have looked back at me if she hadn't broken your heart. Don't worry. I won't be willful or spoiled anymore. I'll learn how to manage household affairs. I'll be gentle and supportive. I'll be the person who stands by your side, this silly girl." When she learned I was facing difficulties after just taking over the business, she immediately used the Prescott name to put pressure on my opponents. When she knew I was returning late from a business trip, she would make a late-night snack and wait up for me. Now, hearing Tiffany's bitter words, she was clearly worried, but was still treading carefully, afraid I might change my mind. I pulled her into my arms and gently kissed her forehead. "Don't you worry. No matter what happens at the engagement party, you are my one and only bride." On the day of the engagement, drawn by the union of the Harrison and Prescott families, and also by Tiffany's new stock whisperer fame, a horde of reporters showed up. The moment Tiffany and Leo got out of their car, they were mobbed. Seeing me standing at the hotel entrance, Tiffany looked triumphant. As the reporters swarmed her, she shot me a smug glance and announced in a loud, firm voice, "Everyone, I'd like to take this opportunity to formally announce that Mr. Sincere Harrison and I broke up a long time ago. As a modern woman, I cannot marry into a relationship that isn't pure, just for the sake of money. I apologize that Mr. Harrison, unable to handle the blow, has been forced to accept an arranged marriage with his family. Though my breakup with Tiffany was never public, it was common knowledge in our circle. Her deliberately repeating it now was a clear slap in my face. Leo also stepped forward. He looked lovingly at Tiffany in her white dress, putting on a pitiful act of a man fighting against a marriage of convenience. "Tiffany, it's all my fault. Love is innocent." I almost threw up. I let out a cold laugh. "Are you two done with your little drama? If you're feeling better, could you please move yourselves and these dozen pieces of scrap metal out of the way?" Leo jumped up, furious. "These are Maseratis, how dare you call them scrap metal?" The moment he finished, the crowd erupted in laughter. Then the sound of rotors filled the air as a dozen helicopters descended from the sky. The hotel dispatched 100 security guards who scrambled to clear the area. Tiffany and Leo were dumbfounded. How could this be? They stood with their mouths agape, looking like they'd been struck by lightning. So many helicopters, such a grand procession for a bride. In a city like this, it required not just money, but more importantly, special flight permissions. Reporters backed away, snapping photos. The crowd took videos as they retreated. Tiffany and her 18 sports cars were shooed away like frightened chicks by the security guards, directed towards the underground garage. 10 helicopters landed one by one. Unloaded from them were bags of gold, cases of cash, and countless property deeds and car keys. The onlookers went wild. Proposing with helicopters was unheard of. Using sacks for gold and cash, the sincerity was unprecedented. Just then, the security guards formed a line, flowers appeared, and music began to play. When my fiancée, Victoria Prescott, stepped out of a helicopter wearing a custom gown worth hundreds of millions, adorned with a sapphire from a British royal auction, the crowd cheered. "Oh my God, are those diamonds on her dress? It's like a river of stars. The sapphire on her neck is gorgeous." So the mysterious buyer was Mr. Harrison. Amidst the envious gazes, Victoria descended like a goddess, walking step by step towards me. Tiffany's eyes were practically bleeding with jealousy. Even in our past life, when I had loved her to death, I had never spent half my fortune on an engagement party. But after taking a deep breath, she put on a dismissive expression. "A bunch of money grubbers. How could any of you possibly understand what true love is?" Fine. We're money grubbers, we're materialistic. But if words are so cheap, why was she sending people with red envelopes to bribe reporters to come up and cover her ceremony when the engagement party began? At the venue, seeing that not a single reporter had moved, Tiffany had the MC turn the sound system up to maximum. I had expected Tiffany to pull some tricks, but I didn't think they'd be this classless. My friends went to argue with them. Leo claimed we were just jealous of his better sound system and threatened to call the police if we laid a hand on him, since the reporters were all there. I was genuinely shocked by their shamelessness. Truly, when someone has no shame, they are invincible. Just then, boom, as if even the heavens couldn't stand it anymore. A few minutes later, the sky opened up in a torrential downpour. Looking up, I saw a ghostly-looking Tiffany with her makeup running, and a dejected, slouching Leo, reluctantly running down from the rooftop. They were also the stars of an engagement party, but compared to Victoria and me, they looked utterly pathetic. The guests at our banquet burst out into unabashed laughter. Victoria glared at the people who had just been praising her as the stock whisperer, fuming. "You promised you'd come to my engagement party, but you defected at the last minute. Don't expect me to help you with stocks ever again." But the elite sons in the circle just laughed as if it were a huge joke. "Money, in our circle, is just the cost of a car. Did you really think your little bit of cash could control us in the face of real connections and resources? Exactly, you dumped Big H for a loser like that. With your poor judge of character, we called you the stock whisperer once, and you actually started taking yourself seriously. Isn't it the truth? Some people just have a thing for gigolos and kept men. I heard this poor schmuck only has a high school diploma." "Ha ha ha, that's hilarious. Leo's face turned beet red. He wished the ground would swallow him whole. Tiffany kept her head down, her face a mask of fury. When she was with me, Tiffany was always greeted with fawning calls of Miss Young. Especially in her past life, when she had reached the pinnacle as a CEO, no one would have dared to disrespect her to her face. Now, having her pretensions torn away by these irreverent rich kids, Tiffany was both ashamed and furious. She clenched her fists so tight her whole body trembled. I thought after such a fiasco, Tiffany's pride would send her home early. I was wrong. She cornered me by the hotel restrooms. "Sincere Harrison, I got engaged to another man. Why didn't you try to stop me?" Seeing me come out, she darted in front of me, blocking my path. She reeked of alcohol, and there was a heart-wrenching brokenness about her. Unfortunately for her, I was no longer the old Sincere. I acted as if I hadn't seen her and walked right past. But Tiffany called out to me again. "Sincere Harrison, do you really not love me anymore?" I found it laughable. We had both just gotten engaged to other people today, and she was still pulling this stunt. "Sincere Harrison, I was wrong. Seeing the way you looked at Victoria today, I know I've lost. But I did all of this because I care about you. I wanted to see you get jealous for me. I wanted to see you go crazy for me, but now, why won't you even look at me?" Her face was a mask of grievance, her voice trembling on the verge of tears. In both lifetimes, this was the first time Tiffany had ever lost her composure like this, and I just found it ridiculous. Once I was the one who loved her and couldn't have her. Now that I'd let go, she was claiming she loved me. I stared at her, my voice calm. "Tiffany Young, didn't you like Leo? You were the one who demanded we break up. You were the one who said I didn't understand love. Now that I've let you go and fulfilled your wish, you're playing the victim. Is there something wrong with you?" Tiffany's emotions grew more intense. She grabbed my arm, pleading. "Sincere, it was a moment of impulse and obsession. But why is it that when I used to tell you to leave, you would beg me to get back together, but now you won't even look back? Why?" Her eyes were full of tears, perhaps from the pain of having her plaything taken away, or perhaps from the regret of not realizing her love for me sooner. But I shook off her touch. Just as she had once recoiled from me in disgust at the gala, I sneered. "Tiffany Young, you and I are done. I have someone I love now. Please stop harassing me." With that, I took a step to leave. But Tiffany was relentless. She rushed from behind and wrapped her arms around my waist. "Sincere, I don't believe you could be so heartless to me. We were together for 7 years. Your love and obsession for me were bone deep. Tell me, why do you hate me so much now? Did you find something out?" My body instinctively stiffened. Tiffany immediately let go and rushed in front of me. "Sincere, you had that dream too, didn't you? That's why you hate me, why you chose Victoria without a second thought. But have you ever considered that it might have just been a dream? That none of it was real?" She was wearing a thin blouse, and her body trembled uncontrollably from the emotional stress. I didn't answer right away. The idea of rebirth was indeed unbelievable, and under the influence of alcohol, my mind felt numb for a moment. Tiffany just stared at me pitifully, stubbornly waiting for my answer. I found it ironic. I used to chase her like a simp, and she couldn't have cared less. Now that I'd let go, she was suddenly remembering my good qualities. But when she was flaunting her love for Leo, forcing me to break our engagement in public, and conspiring with him to extort $100 million from me, did she ever stop to think that I was a person, that I would be hurt by her betrayal? "Tiffany Young, whether it was real or not, the fact is you chose Leo. That is undeniable. You don't deserve to ask for my forgiveness." A wounded look crossed Tiffany's eyes. She froze for a moment, biting her lip, still trying desperately to salvage the situation. "Sincere, aren't you curious why I had to stage that car accident to kill you and your parents?" I flinched, staring at her intently. Seeing she had my attention, Tiffany said unwillingly, "It was because Leo told me that 15 years ago, it was your family's car that killed the boy next door, my first love. I acted rashly in a moment of impulse. I regretted it so much afterward. So it was because of Leo. It was all his scheme. In my past life, after learning that Leo's father was the drunk driver in the accident involving my family's car, I sympathized with the hardships he and his mother faced. I was also genuinely worried about Tiffany's involvement with him, which is why I gave him $1 million to leave. I never imagined my kindness would fuel Leo's greed and make him repay my generosity with malice. Looking at Tiffany, I felt a surge of anger. Leo's father was driving drunk. My family paid for everything, covered the hospital bills. Weren't we the victims in that situation? Besides, why did Leo wait until you were in charge of the company to tell you this? Why didn't he dare to confront me, and instead resorted to these behind-the-scenes schemes? Did you never once suspect him? Tiffany looked at me in disbelief. Tears welled in her eyes as if she had never considered this question before. They say you can't wake a person who's pretending to be asleep. At this point, I had nothing more to say to her. In the 7 years we were together, not only were you obsessed with your dead white moonlight, but you also sentenced my family and me to death based on a single sentence from Leo. Tiffany Young, if you had even a shred of trust in me, if you weren't so self-righteous and had just asked, we would never have ended up here. I have a fiancé now. Please stop bothering me. Tiffany's tears fell like priceless pearls down her pale cheeks. Sincere, you can't be so cruel. I do love you. She had always been a strong career woman. In this life or the last, tears were something that should never have appeared on her face. Now, because of me, she had cried more than in the entire 7 years we were together. Sincere, there was a misunderstanding between us. Maybe being reborn was heaven's way of giving me a chance to make it up to you. Can we start over, please? I waved my hand impatiently. A misunderstanding, really. Tiffany, every time you were drunk you called out your white moonlight's name. I knew I couldn't compete with a dead man, but after 7 years together I couldn't even compare to a substitute? If I repay treachery with kindness, what is left for those who are actually kind to me? In this new life, I was meant to cherish the person right in front of me, and you are not worthy. With every word I spoke, Tiffany's face grew a shade paler. After my last sentence, she collapsed onto the floor. I'm sorry, Sincere. I grew up poor. The boy next door gave me my first taste of warmth, and I always thought it was love. It wasn't until today, seeing you with another woman, that I realized what I felt for him was gratitude. What I feel for you. That is the love between a man and a woman. I let out a cold laugh. Who you love and who you're grateful to has nothing to do with me. Do as you please. With that, I turned and walked away, ignoring her pitiful pleas. I had only taken 2 steps when my fiancée Victoria emerged from around the corner. Sorry, Sincere bro, I didn't mean to eavesdrop. It's just, I heard you talking about being reborn, and I was so curious why you suddenly changed your mind and proposed to me. I took her hand and intertwined our fingers. Silly girl, call me your husband from now on. Seeing me walk away with Victoria, Tiffany, still sitting on the floor, began to sob even more heartbrokenly. But it was a shame. Her life had nothing to do with me anymore. I heard that Tiffany tried to break up with Leo the very next day. Unfortunately, Leo demanded $10 million in emotional distress compensation. Tiffany just threw a stack of his own bills at his head. Leo, furious, threatened to leak her private information and make her a disgrace in the business world. But the Tiffany who was no longer blinded by love was not so easily manipulated. She made it clear if he released a single photo, she would make sure he spent the rest of his life behind bars. When both threats and pleas failed, Mrs. Miller threw a straw mat down at the entrance of Tiffany's company building. She put on a show crying, making a scene, and threatening suicide, lamenting how her evil daughter-in-law had used and abandoned her son and disrespected her. The once engaged couple had become mortal enemies overnight. This kind of gossip instantly attracted bloggers looking for a trending story. While his mother wailed and screamed downstairs, Leo was busy live streaming, milking the situation for views and donations. Tiffany simply called the police. She produced 2 sets of documents, One was proof of the $500,000 in medical bills she had paid for Mrs. Miller, with a clause that if it wasn't repaid in a month, the son would be responsible for the mother's debt. The other was a stack of IOUs from Leo's escapades with prostitutes during their relationship. She publicly clarified that she had no marital ties to Leo, that their finances were separate, and that whether it was loan sharks or credit card debt, whoever incurred it was responsible for it. Leo had been using Tiffany's name for all his spending. The total debt amounted to several $1,000,000. Even the debt collection agencies would hound the mother-son duo relentlessly. Having tasted the sweet life, there was no way Leo was willing to go back to being poor. 2 weeks later, backed into a corner, Leo called my number again. "Mr. Harrison, I have your ex-girlfriend. If you don't want anything to happen to her, you'll wire the money." The same old trick? I was amused by Leo's lack of intelligence. He didn't stop to think that a woman like Tiffany, who had fought her way up, would know he'd get desperate and wouldn't have a contingency plan. Sure enough, just as Leo finished speaking, I heard a police officer yell through the phone, "Don't move, hands up." This was followed by the sounds of Leo resisting arrest and then crying out in pain as he was subdued. I was about to hang up when a voice came through the phone. It was Tiffany. "Sincere, when Leo called just now, were you worried about me even for a second?" So that's why the call came through to me. Tiffany hadn't given up yet. I glanced at the sky outside my window. "If you were so curious, why didn't you wait for my answer before letting the police rush in?" Tiffany froze. Her voice began to tremble. "Sincere, I was scared. I wanted to know, but I was also afraid to know. I really regret everything." My voice was firm. "I'm married, Tiffany. Not taking revenge on you is the biggest concession I can make. From now on, don't contact me again." I hung up the phone. Just then, a news report came on about a kidnapping case. The sought-after female entrepreneur was shown at the scene of the crime, sobbing uncontrollably. The reporter said she was crying tears of joy after her ordeal. It was only when she cried until she collapsed from exhaustion and fainted on the spot that doctors belatedly realized she might be suffering from depression. In the years that followed, at every business gala, a pair of eyes would silently watch me from a distance. I pretended not to notice. No one ever brought it up. Until 20 years later, the owner of that gaze no longer appeared. My wife handed me her phone, showing me a news article. She committed suicide at home. She left her entire fortune to charity. I let out a long sigh. "Tiffany Young, I forgive you.